A tale as old as time. Race swapping white characters. So, How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, which already enough is stupid. We don't need a live action of How to Train Your Dragon. The movie isn't that old. But once again, we have a white character becoming black for reasons. Now they're based on Scandinavian Vikings, and at the time, you didn't find any Scandinavian Vikings who were black. People need to take into account the time period where these things take place. At the time, there were no black Scandinavians. Nowadays, of course, the world is a lot more diverse. But back then, when this movie is supposed to take place, yeah, you're not gonna make you're not gonna find black Scandinavians. So why they feel the need to continuously do this is beyond me. And I've said before, the diversity, it's fine, but it needs to make sense. This doesn't make sense. A black Scandinavian in the time period when there were no black Scandinavians, it's like making a story, a movie or whatever, and having it take place in Africa. And you're following this tribe, right? And they're all black, different colors, different shades of black. But then you have one white dude. It's like, he's part of the tribe, but he's white. Not because of, like genuine diversity, but because they made him white. It doesn't make sense. When you go to Africa, anywhere that has tribes, you're not going to find like one random white dude. So it's like having a movie with a tribe of like 30 people, different, shades of black, and then like one mayonnaise white dude. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And people are just tired of this because this is something that Disney is constantly doing, whether it be with Marvel or Star Wars or these live action remakes. This is what they're doing now, and people are tired of it. Like, why can't they just keep her like this? People need to think of the time period. Okay, you need to stop thinking in terms of, oh, well, it's a modern audience. Okay, great, modern audience. What time period is this set through? What time period is this in? There you go. There's your answer. Stop putting things there that weren't there. Defends Astrid race swap. We're not making a shot for shot remake. Okay. Again, that's fine. But why is it that Disney intends on just every time? Every time. They're afraid of they're afraid of redheads, and they're afraid of blonde people with blue eyes. Or really just white people in general. And they would make everyone black if they had the ability to, but that would cause too much of an uproar. This is just enough to where it won't do anything. In responding to the deluge of pushback to his decision to race swap Astrid, live action How to Train Your Dragon director Dean DeBlois has argued that it ultimately does not matter if the young dragon rider's physical appearance matches that of her animated depiction because he's not trying to make a shot for. And then that's what they do, just a excuse every time. It's not, even though they're real people, even though they're based on real Scandinavian Vikings, real people. It's not a one for one remake. Go with freaking Little Mermaid. She's a mermaid. It doesn't really matter. Just every time you bring it up, they have an excuse for why they're doing it. They can't just say, you know what? Yeah, you guys are right. It doesn't make sense. That would be like us making a movie with an African tribe and having just one mayonnaise white dude. It doesn't make sense. Not like a mayonnaise white dude who would just like went there to study them. No, a mayonnaise white dude who is just like part of the tribe. He born there and grew up there and whatever. And like they just decided to, the animators or whoever decided to make him white. Like he looks like the rest of them for the most part. It's just he's like mayonnaise white. It doesn't make sense. So every time this happens, they have some kind of excuse for why they're doing it. Making the franchise debut in the animated film trilogy rather than Cressida Cowell's original YA novel, Astrid is depicted as a typical Scandinavian woman, bearing braided blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin, as well as an axe that could take the head clean off of anyone who stands in her way. However, in the live-action remake, the heroine bears a much different appearance, thanks to her being played by actress Nico Parker. I wasn't Nico Robin. Oh God, anime brain. This version of Astrid instead has dark skin, green hazel eyes, and curly but still braided brown hair. And regardless of Parker's individual talent, in light of her casting existing as yet another example of blatant race swapping, recent months have seen fans on social media take to voicing their discontent with the wave as with what they view as the latest example of Hollywood's tendency to disrespect the source material that made a given IP so popular in the first place. To this end, Du Bois, who is, in addition to helming the upcoming remake, also served as writer and director of all three animated How to Train Your Dragon movies. So he's like, oh well, I helped write them, so I know what's best. Weighed in on the ongoing discourse surrounding Astrid's live-action appearance via a post made to his personal Instagram on November 21st. I'm surprised it's not Blue Sky. Sharing a screen of a reply I made to a comment on How to Train Your Dragon related Instagram page. The identity of which currently remains unknown. He can be seen therein affirming the declaration made by another user that Parker's casting is not about the color, it's about the acting. Exactly, wrote the director. We auditioned many actors for the roles, including actors who looked like their animated counterparts. But we chose that, of course, every time. I guarantee you there were people much better who embodied the character a lot more. But again, like I said, they do this every time. They try to justify why is it that the white characters are getting race swapped? Every time. Every time. Whether it's, oh, well, it's not a one-for-one remake, and we went through many girls, and none of them fit the bill except for her. Or, why does it matter? It's just a mermaid. Well, why does it matter if Snow White's not white? It's every time. Every time they think of some stupid excuse of why they keep doing it. And fortunately, people aren't as stupid as these people think. They're not. Embody the spirit, personality of these characters, since the Harry Hooligan tribe in this version is made up of descendants of the finest dragon fighters from anywhere that the Vikings had ever traveled, which historically was far and wide. Vikings mixed with many cultures. Still, we're crafting a fantasy, not historical fact. And it will be revealed in time. We're not making a shot-for-shot remake. We just stuck close to key moments to honor the original, which I am very proud of. Drawing his thoughts to a close, ultimately asserted, the teaser features a few of those moments. Instead of a completely new tale, we aim to embellish and deepen, without abandoning the story that fans love. June 13th, 2025, so this summer. The director should just be honest and say that he hired the kid based on DEI requirements, which always seems to be the case with every one of these castings. It's never because of talent. It's always who you want and how to market yourself. Looks like a shot for shot remake in the trailer I saw. This whole live action remake thing isn't exactly working well out for dismal Disney these days. So the only reason this can be a thing is because they can't think of anything new. Yeah, that's all they're doing now are just remakes. I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Vikings were black. Asians were apparently, wait, Asians were originally black too, then the whites killed them off, and Johnny Somali is just calling. Oh, that's hilarious. Wow. Historically, there were a lot of black-skinned people in the Viking community. Of course, they had to be burned to death first. Nothing like rewriting history to meet a feel-good quota. Oh, and dragons? Stories are just better with dragons, which isn't a rewrite of history. It's just fact. It doesn't matter. Big dragons, small dragons, undead dragons. Doesn't matter. Dragons just make things cool. But, yeah. Like I said, it's like an African tribe, you know, a story about an African tribe and having just like one random mayonnaise looking white dude. It doesn't make sense to have Scandinavian Vikings and just have the female swapped to just be black for no reason. It doesn't make sense. And but again, Disney and every other company just tries to justify it every single time. Every time. It's like they did the same thing with Anne Boleyn when they made her black, a historical figure. And yet it's like, oh, well, it's not a historical retelling of her story. Then don't do it. Like, you could still have a retelling of her story that's not that accurate, but you keep her white because Anne Boleyn was white. She was a real person in history, but they're like, no, well, it's not a historical retelling. So it's just the same excuse they use every single time to justify doing it. And people are waking up and seeing that these companies don't actually care. These companies just insist on race swapping for really no reason. And no one has a problem with diversity, but it needs to make sense. You know, if this was a How to Train Your Dragon in current day, then yeah, a black Scandinavian Viking would make sense because the world is obviously much more diverse now. But for the time period, it didn't make sense. I mean, I really don't understand what's so hard to understand here. I don't get what's so hard to grasp. It needs to make sense. You know, it needs to make sense. It's people aren't hating diversity. It's just it makes no sense. But Disney, they don't care. They don't care. They they're not Disney anymore. They're no longer inspiration, imagination, and innovation. They're just soulless. Soulless live action remakes. So, anyway, that's gonna do for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.